Well, welcome back. And now we're all ready to start a very interesting roundtable discussion on rethinking FM technology for the modern service delivery, which is powered by Facilio Inc. So before we start the discussion, I would like to quickly introduce our panelists who are here with us today, starting with Mr. Surajit Biswas, the head of project and building consultancy from Land Sterling. Also joining this panel is Mr. Abdulla Al-Wahedi, the chief executive officer of Irtikaz Property Management. And also we have with us Ms. Javeria Aijaz, the senior director of technology and innovations from Farnek. And moderating the session for us this afternoon is Mr. Prabhu Ramachandran, the founder and CEO of Facilio Inc. So do remember, viewers, that you can post in your questions in the chat box and know who you're addressing it to, so our moderator can take it on accordingly. And we do have an event feed where you can take the discussion out there post your session. Thank you again, and over to you, Mr. Prabhu.
Thank you, Megha. And thanks for all the audience for joining us for this session. And on behalf of all our panelists, I would like to welcome you all again. And thank you, Javeria, Surajit, and Mr. Abdullah for joining this panel. It's a very much needed topic now, where particularly after the pandemic in last few quarters, we are seeing that the importance or the role that technology plays in FM is becoming very, very critical. So we will have this discussion around broadly around 3-4 areas. What is the change as FM as a unit is seeing now, and then how those changes are impacting the technology choice. How is technology being able to help the FMs, and where are the gaps? And also, we'll also talk about some good examples of application of tech and what is the kind of value that has been produced by from the organization that the panelists are part of now. So we'll get started with the first question. So I would like to hear from the panelists where after in last few quarters, particularly after the pandemic, when businesses are opening up, there is a lot of talks about facilities management as a strategic part of real estate, and also the businesses that are using the real estate, be it hotels or malls or offices. Facilities management is becoming very important, and also a strategic player in running the business and growing the business. This has been, there is a lot of reports, discussions around that. From your point of view, like what is that you're seeing? Some examples of how customers are coming back and asking for more, for newer services than the traditional ones. So can you touch upon those kind of examples, so that we'll see like what is the new things that are being expected from facilities management companies? Maybe we can start with Javeria on that.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, and thank you everyone for attending this prestigious webinar today. Yes, Prabhu, I mean, we all know that FM has evolved in the last 20 years immensely as the world moved forward, especially along with the technology supporting and innovating. Here, yes, pandemic has shown us that how dramatically we have digitalized our business, and we are forced to digitalize, because we have seen during pandemic how the commercial towers were completely closed and the residential communities were limited with the access. But there, the buildings cannot shut down, the systems cannot shut down, which means that, yes, it has to, on the back of house, it has to operate, the assets has to run. So definitely from that perspective, we saw that how the world is volatile. We need to make sure that, yes, FM is innovative, and the concept of smart and connected FM is available, so that FM can meet any challenges of the new world coming up. Coming to the strategic partnership point of view, I believe the COVID pandemic and as the technology innovating and the demands from the client, that has brought enough emphasis on the strategic partner, taking FM as a strategic partner. This growing awareness is very important because we are looking now at a building from the holistic approach for its entire life cycle. That how the building is not about only designing it and constructing it and then operating. This is a life cycle. So rather than being a traditional facility manager who focus on the operational side, on just doing the maintenance services, it's a very holistic approach which the building owners and everyone involved should need to think about, that how important it is to take all the stakeholder, which is the FM, which is the consultant, which is the construction, to be a part of the strategy of running this building for its entire life cycle. Again, it is not only important that, yes, we need light and power and HVAC system in the building. The strategic element, which is the contribution from FM at a strategic level, is that how can we make sure that these lighting or HVAC system is always available, especially in such a world where a pandemic can interrupt our normal lives. So this is where the FM is innovating along with technology to give more input at the time of designing and bringing more sustainable solution for the building to operate.
Yeah, so yes, the multi-stakeholder engagement is something that is becoming like more prominent now. The whole coordination between FM owners, pre-construction phase to post-constructions and all of that. And so moving to Surajit, can you share from your perspective, like what are some of the new things that you are seeing that FM companies are expected to get into, expected to deliver?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, and thank you, Javeria, Abdulla, and other panelists. So as a consultant, what we are seeing is like the pandemic and the COVID. This has been a black swan moment, not just for FM, but for all other industries as a whole. So as expected in any black swan moment, so this is a catalyst of change, and the change is everywhere. So what is happening is that the ecosystem is fundamentally impacted. So when we say ecosystem, like say businesses are operating differently now than they used to, previously. Spatial requirements are changing, and processes are being modified. So all the 3 Ps are being impacted. So that is causing a structural impact on the FM output as well as the FM input. Now, when we talk about FM outputs, the most profound changes or the most profound impacts are on the housekeeping, obviously, and also on the security aspect. And perhaps also caused due to the realignment of a variable workforce. So the workforce is no longer constant. So people are working from home. Some people are coming in. There's a randomized, movement of people in and out of office. So all of this is putting stress and change into the FM outputs. Now, if you talk about the FM inputs, well, the changes, I think, Javeria and Abdulla will agree, the changes are even more fundamental. Reason being, when we saw COVID and when we touched base upon, because we do a lot of FM consultancy. So when we interacted with clients, we saw that they were facing a number of issues, starting from hiring, a movement of people, how to get the people onto their sites. So hiring, staff accommodation, the entire architecture of how staff accommodation was operated was impacted. Transportation is another one. Like earlier, they were able to transport 30, 40 people in a bus. Now they can no longer do that. That means that in a bus, they can only provide maybe 15, 20 people. So more number of frequency of bus transport to the respective sites. What that means is increased cost, increased carbon footprints. Then obviously, due to the change in the ecosystem, all of FM's SOPs are fundamentally again impacted. So realignment of their SOPs. So these are some of the core impacts which the FM industry has felt. And moving on to the reason or FM's role as a strategic partner, I think, Prabhu, FM's role as a strategic partner is an induced option. So it has been induced by this pandemic or this COVID crisis, whatever we may call it. We are still on it, and that induction is still going on. And why we as a consultant think that FM will have a more strategic role is there are many reasons, but I'll just touch base very broadly on the 4 items. One is, in order to support a variable workforce, for sure, FM will have a cross-functional role with HR and IT. So that's strategic.
Yep.
Growing dependency on workplace data. This means that FM will sure be supporting more on the corporate real estate, CRE functions.
Yep.
The need for the workplaces to be more agile. This means that FM will be burdened to turn less into a more ROI. Again, strategic. Least but not the least is the need for businesses to reduce their operating expense, which will then mean that this time around, partnership will be the only way forward. Again, strategic. So all of these issues or all of these factors is ensuring that there is an induced transition of FM into a more strategic role. And I think that that day is not far when FM will and should sit in a C-suite. So we have CEOs, we have CFOs, we have COOs, but there is no representation of FM in the C-suite. But this hopefully is going to change. So we may soon have a CFMO or whatever fancy nomenclature we may give, perhaps a Chief Facility Management Officer. So as a consultant, this is the broader spectrum of what we are seeing.
Amazing insights. Particularly, I like the way you categorize the input and the output, and also listed down the very specific areas where FM will become strategic. We're already seeing that a lot of board meetings are now starting to talk about facilities broadly, like back to office, or even in case of hotels and hospitals, the whole facilities, health, wellness, safety is becoming like it's becoming a boardroom discussion already. Soon, as you say, we will have new roles, like a more high prominent roles coming up. Yeah. So moving, Abdulla, if you can share your perspective on this.
Thank you, Prabhu, and thank you, my colleagues. I will just build on what Surajit just mentioned in his remarks. See, before the COVID, about a year or 2 years ago, there were talks about the role of the code, or the NCMA code, which is more to do with crisis management and resilience of organizations. But then with the COVID, I think they just this moved a little bit on the side. But then what we saw during the COVID time, the lockdowns, the movement around, that facilities management is all about manpower. Some locations did not get the manpower that is required. So now life is going back, and people are going back to offices. Most of the clients are now doing their crisis management plans, looking at it, reviewing it, looking at possibilities of not having the service provider on site, which means that how do we do in case of emergencies or lockdowns, because FM is all about manpower. Now, you cannot have all the the manpower housed on site. This means that facility management companies have to come up with innovative solutions. Now, when we say innovative solutions, we're talking about the use of technology, whether in the field of the hard FM where you do predictive maintenance, or you on the soft FM where you use the robots, for example, in terms of cleaning. So that the shift now towards the technology, there is a push, and there is a need. It's now up to the facility management company, up to people like Javeria, who are the leaders in the market, to come up with ideas that will help and will also touch on what Surajit mentioned about the margins that are dropping. Let's face it, let's be realistic. Today, this market, facilities management, the margins are very low. The only way you can make money is by reducing your operational costs. There is a limit to what you can do. There are government fees, there are housing fees. So the only way to do it is by being innovative. You reduce your manpower, you come up with new ideas, you do whatever is available. So the forces are pushing towards change. It's now the other side, on the receiving end, and only those who see this coming will respond and will change. Like Surajit said, the 3 Ps. okay, we'll change it and we'll go for more of a partnership. I'll give you an example. 3-4 years ago, I was asked, by one of the service provider, and he said, Abdullah, when are we going to see 5-year contracts? I said, well, when we trust each other. At that time, I was a client. So I said, when we trust each other, because there is an element of mistrust between the client and so if we're talking about partnership, and if we're talking about having a joint venture together, then it's a complete different story. It's all about open books. It's not about mistrust. If there is an element of mistrust, you cannot be a partner. It's all about opening your books, talking face to face, shaking a hand, and moving on. But then there has to be an effort from the service provider and more of, let's say, trust. In Saudi, they have 10 years, 15 years contracts for facility management. Here, people are still going for the annual contract, and if anything, they will go to 3. During the COVID, because there is no chance of tendering, they extended it to 5 years. But then, of course, now we're going back to 3 years, input-based, and that element of mistrust. So, in summary, there is a need in the market. There is a push. It's now grab the opportunity for you to continue operating in the market. Otherwise, with these limited margins, with these competition in the market, many companies will be out of business.
Okay. Thank you, Abdullah. You brought in an interesting perspective where if the FM service providers has to become strategic, then there is a need, and that also there is the positive side. There is more and more you bring in strategic value and build the trust. It also positively impacts longer contracts and probably like high value services that can be delivered. Okay. So given this is a common thing we are seeing here is a lot of areas where there is a strategic value for FM, plus FMs have to work under constraints now in terms of skills and even number of people and all of that. Plus at the same time help clients to reduce cost and all of that. So with these, how do you see, if you look at the traditional way of technology choice, say in last 10, 15, 20 years, is mostly around your CAFM, CMMS, and then the BMS and the energy management systems all separate. Where do you see, like, what are the gaps as users of technology, plus as leaders in already, like you have been implementing a lot of technology already. Can you share some gaps that you want or you are seeing in existing stacks that either you might have already addressed those gaps or you want those gaps to be filled in, so that technology will help facilities management teams to become more agile, more strategic for the end clients? Maybe we'll start with, again, Javeria.
Okay. I mean, it's a very important topic nowadays. And Prabhu, as you are coming from a very nice platform called Facilio, which is an integrated platform. And it's also rooting us back to the first discussion about having FM as a strategic partner. We traditionally always have this construct, as I mentioned before, design, construction, and maintenance phases. And this is where the technology also went in, that it is much later in the time that we appreciated that why do we need, for example, a BIM model, a BIM system, though we appreciated earlier that yes, we need a CAFM system, we need separately a BMS system to manage, to monitor and control our asset. We need a separate energy management system so that we can do energy saving. But as we are progressing and as we are innovating, and the awareness is growing, and the platforms like Facilio, which are coming as an integrated platform, the facilities, it's not only the facilities FM side, but from the consultant, from the business owner side, what I see is that there is a real need to think about a strategic platform, a platform which is used right from the design phase, like which is taking information about the whole design of the building during the construction phase, which is connected to the BMS system, so that it can take all the performance of the assets, which is connected to the CAFM, so that whenever there is a work order generated, it has all the related information of the historical performance of the asset, with all the parameters coming from BIM model, but I would go one step forward, having integrated a tenant management solution also, where it's not only nowadays assuming, but it is practical, where if me as a end user, tenant of a workplace have a problem in my air conditioning, I should be able to raise a call from my mobile app, where it can route directly to the technician who's taking care of this area of this building. But in his work order, the technician can see that all the related information about the design parameters, about the asset information, the historical performance of it, and any spare parts which he probably need. So here, what we are talking about is the end user is talking directly to the technician, and the system is facilitating all the information from data coming from all this platform, which is integrated. The same integrated platform is helping us when these systems are integrated and recording all the performance of energy consumption and how well our assets are performing. This is the same system which is feeding all the information into the energy management and how well these assets are performing, whether the assets are consuming more energy, so that we can service it and save energy and advise the building owner. So I believe that yes, as I mentioned before, that FM has evolved, the world has evolved, and we all, as a business leader coming from the property owner, from consultant, from FM industry, we are sharing our knowledge, and the technology, the latest platforms are supporting those interconnected data, which is the way forward, because we want to be efficient. This is how we can reduce the cost, where the technician has all the information available from all these systems, and he is very well equipped before he would go and look into the problem to fix it.
Yeah. I think to take out some insights from what you shared, the gaps are like multi-stakeholder engagement, the same point you touched earlier. How do we create seamless experience between a tenant and a technician, or a owner and a tenant, and they're all working on single source of truth data. So I think this has already anyway happened so if you look at IT, we have ServiceNow kind of platforms where it spans across so many different teams on the IT side, finance and HR and the project management and all of that. And this side, if you take Salesforce, that has already happened. And now even a Uber or a Kareem kind of model is all platforms connecting different.
I mean, if you look at, we are living in a very advanced, innovative country, and we saw Dubai, how it has innovative. We look at all the government services, how they are bringing blockchain as a part of their service delivery, where you have access to all the information, how they are connected. And this is the similar approach we as a FM industry is also adopting, where we are all connected and all information is available to definitely improve the value proposition, and at this time reduce the cost of time and efforts.
Thank you for that. Surajit, from a consulting background, what are some of the gaps from the existing technologies that are available, and how do you see the industry filling it up, and what are some of the key elements of technology you feel that will actually help FMs to become more strategic and deliver?
Yeah, so Prabhu, as a consultant, so we touch base with different kind of properties, different kind of asset classes within real estate, and different types of real estate stakeholders. So we have seen properties as a standalone having nothing, and then we've seen BMS being integrated. Then we have seen various forms of CAFMs and CMMS and EAMs and IWMS, all of those. So if I was to encapsulate what I mean, let's call it a legacy CAFM, which we have right now, and the evolving CAFM is the future. So the legacy CAFM, which we predominantly have, or what we are witnessing, is more of a process automation tool. It's more of a reporting tool, more of a digital administration tool, more of a perhaps a performance management tool. And the gaps are pretty obvious. Like, it's a reactive fix. It's a retrospective data. There is no self-learning, capability. And the inputs are still human-centric, which means that they are still prone to subjective opinion, and the margin of errors are high. And then the insights are really missing. What you have is dashboard information, a lot of dashboard information. And then they are mostly standalone or silo. And of course, as Javeria mentioned, that they are not interfaced with the other systems. Now, what are we seeing? Well, it's difficult to speculate the future, but we can only make knowledgeable assumption looking at the trends which are today. And these trends which are today will obviously form the norms of tomorrow. So if you look at the data maturity level, so we are experiencing or we are witnessing changes which are quite interesting and dramatic. For example, the future CAFMs, we are seeing that the data landscape is evolving from being silo point to an aggregated and balanced data. Then we're looking at the data quality. Data quality in a legacy CAFM currently is mostly noise, whereas the future CAFM is more actionable intelligence. Then if you look at the limit of influence of the data, limit of influence of today's CAFM, Prabhu, is mostly now, today, and yesterday.
Yeah.
Whereas the CAFM of the future, which is being developed and emerged, will be now, today, yesterday, and tomorrow.
Yep.
In terms of strategy of these platforms, well, legacy CAFM is mostly reactive, whereas the future, obviously, it's a no-brainer. It will be predictive and probably even proactive. Outputs, as I just mentioned, what we have right now is dashboards, and what we will have in the coming future is insights and knowledge. And in terms of purpose, well, the purpose of, I'm sad to say that the purpose of today's CAFM is fix the history, right? Whereas the purpose of tomorrow's CAFM is let's learn and let's together create value. So this is the fundamental, broad landscape perspectives in terms of data maturity that we are seeing across the CAFM model.
Yeah, again, a great way of summarizing. So anyway, the way you explained itself is actually in a very bulleted, summarized points. But it's very interesting that the CAFMs has to serve the future and work on data, the truthful data, and more than a system of records, evolve into insight and actions. Yeah, so it's very well cut out. And we are already seeing like there is a lot of solutions emerging. And the good thing here is this has already occurred in a lot of parallel markets, like even your e-commerce or manufacturing, supply chain. Even on the IT side, it has happened. There is enough well-tested technology available. It's all like how market somebody can, like there are many vendors bringing in how the market embraces and moves forward with like creating more value out of it.
True, very true, Prabhu.
Yeah. And Mr. Abdulla, like would you like to share something on this?
Yeah, look, I will take a different, opinion side here. And I would say there are two industries involved in this. There is the IT or the technology industry and the facility management industry. The IT technology industry is a very fast moving, quick changes, come up with new ideas. Every day there you hear a new thing, robots. I don't know what, a few years ago, I don't know, somebody spread the rumor that robots are going to take over life and we're going to die and all of that. And then suddenly Corona came and stopped everybody, okay? So, and then you have an industry on the other side, which is the facility management, manpower heavy, very traditional. Change within that environment is not as fast as you have it on the other side. So what you have so many solutions. You have the CAFM, you have the energy management, you have the PMS, you have, I don't know, the fire alarm, you have the predictive maintenance, you name it. And my colleagues just named zillions of systems. And we're talking about, like Surajit said, about the future CAFM. On the other side, you have some, people not well trained, they need lots of development. For God's sake, stop bringing new solutions and let's see what is currently having and then utilize it. As a client, as an owner of an asset, you know how much investment is made in the normal CAFM system that today we're saying it's outdated? It's okay. It's outdated. It's fine. But at least let's use it. The utilization, if you go and ask anybody, most of the modules that are there, they're not being utilized. I would, I don't have a basis for this, but I would say it's 20% of whatever features are available in the CAFM system are being used. CAFM systems are very difficult to use. They're not friendly. Okay, no matter what you say, there are some solutions available in the market, but then they don't have that, predictive modules and predictive maintenance, capabilities. So it's a trade-off between, easy to use and then capabilities. The more, complicated outcomes you want, then it becomes complicated and then it's difficult to implement. BIM, nice to have, a very expensive. Nobody is going to do it. Let's face it. Let's bring reality here. As a facility manager today, not tomorrow, today, with the current, they don't even go back to drawings. Who cares about drawings today? Nobody looks at drawings. People go to site. They just go to site because it's easier, faster. Now, is this right? No, it's not right. Is this going to help us for the future? It's not going to help us for the future. Is this how we want the future of facilities management? It's not. What needs to happen here is a strategy for changing the people who are using this technology. Otherwise, you'll have so many solutions which are not being used. A few years ago, I had a team, they brought energy management, they monitored every single corner of the building. I said, nice, good, nice to see bars and graphs. And last month, I said, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to give me an energy management plan? Are you going to reduce my energy bill? The answer is quiet. There's no quiet, nothing. It's only a dashboard. So these are toys to me. Now, these toys, if they're not being utilized to reduce my operational cost, if there's no real utilization, then as a client one day, I will never make an investment. And then you'll have lots of solutions which nobody is going to buy. So let's look at the people, not just focus on new solutions and ITs and Apple Watches and whatever, and forget about the people who are using the technology and not train them, not teach them what are the latest trends. For me today, if I want to implement predictive maintenance, I have to hire a consultant who is from an IT background to help me write the codes for the machine learning. I have to teach the consultant about all the failure possibilities for him to drive the code to be inputted in my machine. Look at the learn. This is impossible. It's like, no, go back to the engineer, go back to the facility manager, train them, force them to use the modules. You have, CAFM system today, they have procurement modules, they have inventory management. They're not being used because you have a Maximo, you have an FSI, and then the organization has Oracle. So there is a need for a strategy, not just that looks at new solutions in the market. It also looks at the process that within the organization. It also looks at the people. The people is very important part of this. The moment they start using the technology and they realize it, in my previous role, I was able to achieve lots of savings because I used the information in my CAFM system to renegotiate contracts. But then did I utilize the procurement module? No, because it's a different system from what the organization is using. Did I use the accounting module? No. Then what do I have? I have lots of features which I paid hundreds of thousands for. And now with the new CAFM system generation, I will pay another 100,000 for something I did not utilize. So this is not worth the investment. I would rather not have a system, use Excel if that's only 20% of my new CAFM system. So what needs to happen? We need to have a strategy that will look at the people, look at the process, and look at the products, and ensure a proper utilization of what is available in the market, not just go back after and buy latest technologies and then not utilize them and then keep them on the side.
Yeah, I think it's a great perspective that you have brought in. Change management, particularly in our industry, is very, very important. Where because the way the business is modeled itself, right? There is owners, investors on one side, and then we have a FM company. There could be, like, in some regions, that FM company even outsources to some other subcontractors. Then you have OEMs who are coming and doing part of the AMCs. So the ownership visibility is so distributed, and any technology that comes in has to go and play nicely across all of these, which is not easy. So having a strategy for change management is very, very key to even implementing. Thinking about implementing is easy, but realizing value, comes if you have a strategy and plan for change management itself. Um, but I think it is not impossible, as you rightly said. The customers, the percentage of like what they are paying, what they are using, there is a huge gap there. Mostly because from my our observation is a lot of these systems are not real estate only systems. So they are being sold for a oil and gas pipeline monitoring, EAM system, plus in a shipping and all of that. So real estate is one part of that. So there is a lot of effort you have to make to change those systems to fit into this particular technicians whose knowledge level, skill level, all of that are slightly different. And also the penetration of mobility in legacy FMs is also very, very low. It's mostly like desktop, but nobody uses is in front of desktop. Where ours is an industry where the employees in a FM company, they rarely go to the office, do their own headquarters probably only like once a month or so. So in that case, mobility is very, very important. When the whole thing of mobilities and very custom contextual apps are coming, like apps for technician, app for fire safety person, apps for say security guards. These are all coming up now, and the underlying technology is developing so fast. We have like compared to 10 years back, it's very, very easier to go and build a mobile app for a particular persona today. So uh, I think in the coming years that is going to, like, all these change management is going to happen. But as you said, it has to be like taken as a very, very strategic initiative across all the parties, both vendors and the thing. Before we move to like the next question, which is about some of the use cases from your experience where you're really seeing value by implementing technology other than the traditional ones. Some context I want to set there. So based on our discussion so far, we are also able to validate that where we are seeing more and more even FM contracts, like facilities management contracts, mentioning that, oh, if we choose you as a facility management vendor, what can you deliver for us from a strategic level in next, say, 5 years or 10 years? Like how can you help us to improve automation, to reduce manual work, or to impact positively on the value of our properties? We are seeing more and more the RFPs for facilities management contracts are starting to talk about what is the value beyond your regular, I'm paying you for X number of people, or I'm paying you for this set of maintenance job. But if we give you 5-year, 10-year contract, what is the thing that you will, at the end of 10 years, how much of efficiency you will show us? So that is becoming more and more common. And another trend we are seeing is particularly the new buildings that are getting constructed, they're all like getting far advanced in terms of technology, the facilities management technology per se, where there is a lot more thought going into how do we hand over from construction to operations, all those BIMs, 3D models, and all of the digitized diagrams, plus how can they be used day in and day out by the right set of people. One analogy I see here is most of the modern cars today that are coming in, even like any car that is going to cost you like say $20,000, they are definitely having a connected car feature where they're giving apps to do some set of actions from that. You can remotely switch on, adjust temperature, air conditionings, all of that. So there is similar thing happening in newer buildings, where new buildings that are getting constructed are like more far ahead in terms of technology. I think that will also snowball into like those technology will slowly start moving into the existing building, because those users who are seeing the value are going to think harder on why don't we do this in existing buildings. Okay? So that will actually go and improve that. So with that context, if you can share some good examples of technology implementation that either you're doing now or already done it with some clear outcomes, that can be a good takeaway for the audience, where instead of they thinking about so many different options, if there are some success stories, audience can go and start looking at those. Anyone wants to start?
I can go ahead if you want, Peter.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think my colleagues did mention about, the predictive maintenance being the future. And I guess this is something that people are talking about, I believe. In fact, if I remember correctly, Facilio was involved also in this exercise for Burj Khalifa to develop codes, I would call it, for, it's not, we're still at the early stages of artificial intelligence, and we're still in the control learning stage where you basically input codes into your machine or into your system and then come up with scenarios. And I think this was, properly tested, demonstrated in Burj Khalifa before, and the savings were also, remarkable in terms of reducing the cost. But of course, the rollout, that's a different story by itself. What we're seeing, or what normal, let's say, real estate owners, would love to have and would love to see and invest in, I would say, in more of energy management, because this is more an easier system to use, and also the results are very quick. So whether it's new buildings where you have, lighting controls and you have sophisticated billing systems, or all buildings where, escrow companies like go and invest sometimes and put an energy management system so that they can, review the building, energy usages and then reduce it. That's the easy thing to do. But then the predictive maintenance is where I see the future. Is it available for everyone? I don't think it's available for everyone. It's something that is going to be the future. But then it will also take a longer time to see the benefits of it. More, I would say 5 years at least from the time of making that decision or making that investment. Okay, and then rolling out across all the assets and then realizing the fruits after that.
Great.
I think I would just add on to what Mr. Abdulla said, and totally agree with him. What Abdulla is saying is a very pragmatic situation that we are into. We can talk about technologies, but technology is as good as its implementation and its viability of implementation. So, Prabhu, the perceived benefits of which are driving interest and driving perhaps a level of investment into a smart building operation are there, but we need to see, what we need to see is more POCs. We need to see more proof of concepts, and we need to see what are the lessons learned. So, and this proof of concepts has to be made available to all the stakeholders of real estate industry, so that the maturity relating AI and augmented reality and predictive maintenance, it can be easily digested by each stakeholder. And that's what is needed. I find similarity to 10 years ago. If you think, where were we with solar? 10 years ago, we knew that there was something called solar, but if I wanted that, okay, I want to change my everything to solar lights, it was not possible, because the information and solution providers at that time were very, very fragmented. But if you look at today, if I want to change my light bulbs into solar, that's a no-brainer. And it happened because the market of solar industry matured it. And we are at that junction now with FM, especially with FM and CAFM and predictive, where that maturity needs to happen. Because when we deal with property owners, they ask a simple question that, all right, if say suppose I am ready to change everything, how do I do it? We don't have an easy answer for them. We don't. And that's the pragmatic approach that we need to take. Look at Dubai. Most of the buildings do have at least a BMS system. Most of the buildings, let's say mid-scale to high scale, do have a CAFM system. And there is enough data already available. So what happens to all this data? Does it get lost? So as Abdulla said, this change management, there has to be a technology which will enable a migration of this change. Perhaps make use of the existing data, run some analytics on the existing data which is available already to see what more can be achieved. and then take it slowly to the next level, which is, complete change of the environment in view of the stack which we talked about. 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, we are bound to see machine sensing, biological sensing, environmental sensing. All of this will be the bottom stack of any building environment. It is bound to happen. IoT devices, sensors, remote monitoring is bound to happen. And then we will see emergence of smart engineering technologies like smart elevator management, smart chill water management, smart heating management, all of this. And then what we are actually proceeding for is a digital twin. It is going to happen, whether we want or whether we don't want. The digital twin is bound to happen. And then at the very upstream, if you see, Prabhu, we are looking at simply mere smartphones and end user devices, something which is very easy, which CAFM does not allow. And probably collaboration tools, something like a Zoom of buildings, I don't know. But it is going to happen. And that's where this journey we need to take with a very pragmatic approach, so that the interest of all stakeholders are incorporated into this maturity model.
Yeah.
I mean, I also completely agree with my fellow panelist here. And a very important thing which we are talking since the beginning is the strategic approach on how the buildings has to operate, which has all the information coming in. And as Abdulla also rightly mentioned, that even the current CAFM has too much data, but if there is no strategy, no SOP to utilize that data, then that heap of data is just sitting there and not getting utilized. But this is where these analytical platforms are coming, which are supporting, which has the power to support, to move into the future of predictive maintenance. It's all about this taking step forward. As we are appreciating the usefulness of converting data into information, and that can only happen not by keep on stacking up the data, but just restacking our technology, integrating it so that we can get a useful information out of it. Otherwise, we would always operate in a traditional FM manner, where we are using CAFM to create a work order, to get the job done and close it, and that data is nailed there for historical purposes. But we all emphasize, and I believe this is all we are sharing our knowledge to the industry, that okay, how this connected FM, which is the future, is based, and this whole predictive maintenance is based on data-driven maintenance. So definitely this analytical platform, whether it's with the power of ML and AI, it is needed to convert that data into the information to be used by the facility operator.
Okay, yeah, great, thank you. From three of your answers, some of the use cases that can have clear benefits. Abdulla touched about the whole predictive, and he also cautioned that that is going to take some time, which is true. And then we spoke about the whole data. How can we use data? Surajit touched upon that. And then finally, how do you do connected CAFM? So these are all in right direction. On the data part, one comment there is, I think our industry is has a slight advantage where there is a lot of data already available in terms of, but it is scattered. So I always say that in terms, let's take, for example, in Uber, when they started, right, they have to spend tons of money to create the data, behavioral data about which area, at what time you have more cab needs and all of that. So it took the industry, it took few years to actually create enough data to start self-learning. But the advantage we have is there is a lot of data available. We have to go and pick it up and then start strategically using it. On the concerns that Abdulla touched upon, I think this has more and more internally what we are seeing is, see that as an evolution than a revolution. So it's not easy to bring in change management. So how do we use existing systems and evolve them into a iterative newer systems. That way, like in terms of value, even before we move to real predictive maintenance, right? We are seeing that customers simply mobile enabling all right stakeholders, not only technicians. How do you mobile enable your tenants? How do you bring in your, particularly the leadership? More and more you bring leadership into seeing the technology, using the technology, and they're not going to do PPMs, definitely. But if the leadership knows what is my SLA violations across my properties, how many critical tickets are pending for more than whatever it is, right? Then leadership can help the teams first. They can first, instead of usually it is being seen as if a leadership knows they're going to question me, but flip it with all the rich experience, the leaderships, once they are seamlessly involved into day-to-day technology use, they are going to help their teams under them to go and optimize, make changes and all of that. So that is something where we see there's a lot of vendors are starting to focus on how can we build contextual apps for leadership to give them right kind of insights to make right kind of decisions. Plus simply mobile enable everybody, bringing all them into one sort of use cases, plus automating simple workflows like what one of you touched upon, like my inventory is in my ERP, but my CAFM is separate. If that can be seamlessly integrated, if there is an approval that is required to pick up an inventory, that can be done on mobile properly in a secured way, it saves so much of time for people. So we are seeing that the value that customers are able to derive from those kind of automation on like existing tech stack is very, very high, where you bring like, that's where I mentioned ServiceNow did that in IT. So there is a huge scope for that level of automation in facilities management, where you can automate, reduce friction, reduce unnecessary paperwork, waiting periods. That is the first value. Then it motivates customers to go and invest more money into more sensors, more connected, more predictive and all of that. So with that, I think we have 8 more minutes. There are a few questions. We can take those questions. I will read out the question and one of the panelists can pick it up.
Easier if you pick the person to answer. So we have 8 minutes and then khalas.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as mentioned by Surajit, we have a lack of presence of boardroom. Yes. What strategy FM should adopt to bring technology to workplace? So this is on the boardroom. I think the question is more of how to fast track like more and more discussions on the boardroom about facilities management.
Yeah, so the answer I think you already gave, Prabhu, that the inclusion of the top management.
Yeah.
Because when top management experience the power of what the technology can offer, and that's when it will be a top-down approach. Mm-hmm. So that can speed up investment, that can speed up decision making, that can speed up whatever else, logistics and finances and other considerations which are needed to really, But again, going back to what Abdulla said, baby steps are necessary. I think Javeria also acknowledged, and that's the most important thing. But if you look at also from a very macroeconomic perspective, it will drive FM, and this is my belief that it's going to drive FM to be an always available service, but with an important differentiation. And that is on an on and off basis. That is what eventually we are heading for. And now when it will happen, probably 5 years, 10 years, but it is going to happen. So that's my perspective of the future.
Yeah, thank you. I'll read the next question. One of you can pick up. Do you believe reducing workforce will help sustain the business and help the company in the pandemic?
Javeria, you want to take over this question?
Yeah.
You're the service provider,
No, indeed. I mean, the value is not coming by reducing the manpower. I think what the focus is increasing the value through bringing the technology, bringing the sustainable operations. And as we also appreciated during pandemic, how the technology digitalization has helped every industry to be active during the pandemic. So the intention is not to reduce manpower, because yes, definitely, Abdulla, you're right, that the robots cannot take over humans. But yes, it can make, the technology can make operations much more sustainable in the everyday challenging environment.
Yes, I agree with you. My perspective is also like this. Again, I go back to the evolution versus revolution. This is going to be an evolution where currently the workforce itself is on the lower end of it. More and more technology. The technology is basically going to create value for everybody, like how Uber created value for the passenger, the driver, and all of that. Similarly, more and more technology will create, it will impact the value of the buildings. It will impact the businesses that are running in the building. So that will open up higher value workforce. Like you acquire newer skills, move up the salary band. So that is the positive thing that will come out. And that is not going to happen in, like, say, 1 year or 2 years. It's going to be an evolution where more and more tech coming in will move the workforce to a high value workforce, strategic workforce, rather than like only in the lower end of it. So that, I think that overall will be a positive thing. And I think we'll pick up one more question. So this is on the legacy CAPM. Somebody is not agreeing. Yes. Sweeping and largely incorrect statements about legacy CAFM on mobility. Please provide evidence of what you assert. I'm not sure, like, I understood. So I will just clarify this, and then one of you can pick up. So I think that when the legacy CAFM could mean a lot of things.
I think he's referring to Surajit's comment about the current CAFM system and where it stands.
Yeah. But again,
a dashboard, not not a future bulletproof kind of solution. Right. So Surajit, I tend to agree with him. Although he was very on the attack on that side, and of course not all the current CAFM providers will not agree with him for sure. But look, you have a CAFM system, you have lots of data, nobody's using it. That's it. This is simply what is happening in the market. It's not the fault of the system. It's not the fault of the CAFM system. There is a disconnect between the systems and the people, and that's why there's no utilization. Simple. True. Fix this problem, then you don't need to buy a new CAFM. Then your system will be enough.
Indeed. I totally agree with Abdullah here that all these CAFMs that we are using in the industry across the towers, I mean, they are specialized software and they are doing the specific job. It's all about having that data converted into useful information. So that need a strategy, that need a procedure, that how can we use all that data to move forward, to get into the predictive environment. So I would not blame the CAFM technology which we are using at the moment.
Yeah.
Yes, true. See, because the way it is when in the whole CAFM thing emerged, right? It was predominantly around asset management. It is more of it was meant to be initially system of record, where I need to know what are the assets, what are the maintenance schedules for it, who's doing it, and they get paid for it. So that's how it started. It served well. But what is happening is what to deliver is increasing beyond assets. Now FMs have to deliver tenant experience, customer experience. They have to impact cost. They have to bring strategies to reduce operational cost. So for that, that's a change management where the customers and the users have to look at CAFM on that angle, and then start seeing like how they can extract more value out of it. I think we can pick one more question. We have 1 more minute. How can we convert the data residing in CAFM system to meaningful information? Good question. Anyone want to pick it up?
Ask the consultants.
Well, I think the consultants are already on fire. So if I may just go back, look, when we talk about legacy CAFM, it was not about criticizing the legacy CAFM. It was about appreciating that the legacy CAFM is in its en route for evolution, and that evolution is impacted by the norm or by the trends that we are seeing today. And the trends are IoT, machine learning, AI, augmented reality. So that journey is ongoing. And what we were trying to understand is that what the future CAFM will look like. That's not to say that the current CAFM does not do its job. Well, it was built for a purpose, using the resources and using the technology and the knowledge available at the time. But then it is in its natural progression of your development, and that's what we were as a consultant that we foresee. So the question about how can we use, well, you need to look at the wastage history. The data that the existing CAFMs do provide is where is the wastage happening, and that can be a useful insight for property managers, property owners, and operators to channelize their actions accordingly. It's not automated to an extent. Again, some CAFMs that we have seen in certain properties have some automation available, but I'm talking more on a more generic scale. So on a generic scale, there is a lot of data there, and the best option, I think, is to understand where is the wastage happening across all platforms.
Yeah. Okay, great. I think we are right on time. Again, on behalf of all the panelists, we would like to thank all the attendees again. And thank you very much for all three panelists for joining us. And this was really very, very insightful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Definitely agree with you, Mr. Prabhu, and thank you so much, panel. Some very key takeaways over there, and a good firefighting situation as well, I understand. And of course, thank you, viewers, for joining us. With that, we conclude the facilities management section of Smart Built Environment Forum. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the speakers who were there with us this morning, and of course, our sponsors and partners. Just to quickly mention them, our diamond sponsor, Nakil Community Management, our gold sponsor, Ijada and Serview, and our silver sponsor, Innova, Kaizen Asset Management Services, Netix Novus, Provis, and Socianta, and our knowledge partner, CBRE, and our technology partner, Facilio, and not to forget our strategic partner, JLL, and innovation partner, Emerald Services, and of course, our segment sponsor for this morning, Bhavani International Group. Thank you again, and do stay safe.
Thank you.